Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
You are sitting ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Welcome to another edition of Sitting Ringside. This is David Penzer, and we want to welcome you back once again to this thing we call a podcast. So happy for you to be here, and we appreciate you being a part of this podcast. And if you haven't yet, we do ask that you subscribe and tell your friends and neighbors. You can follow us on social media at David Penzer, all one word, or at Penzer Ringside is the site of for Twitter for the actual show. So those are two places you could go, and we welcome your input. We welcome your suggestions. I am very happy to announce that while I've been promoting it and teasing it for a while, I did speak today to the one and only Jim Cornette, and we have firmed up that next week's guest on this very podcast will be the one and only Jim Cornette. So I'm looking forward to hearing about how the Midnight Express was formed, how, the different stories that he has to tell. He has so many stories that I think I hope that every week is a must listen, because we put a lot into trying to ask questions that have never been asked before and bring on guests that have never talked before or haven't talked in a long time, and find unique ways to entertain you and tell you stories about the business that I love and got to be a part of for so long. So Jim Cornette next week is all set. We got the time and the date, and so we're looking forward to that. If you have any questions or any topics that you'd like me to hit up Mr. Cornette about, please feel free to hit me up on Twitter and let me know that. Real quickly, also want to tell you that if you have or know anybody who has needs for a realtor in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area, and also would like to tell wrestling stories while they're buying or selling their house, please feel free to tell them, or if that's you, you could hit me up. It is David Penzer at radioinfluence.com, David Penzer at radioinfluence.com. I'm happy to help out anybody, and believe it or not, this is not all I do for a living. So I wanted to throw that out there once again, and happy to help anybody. And if we could tell some stories along the way, then that's always cool as well. It's always fun that somewhere along the process of being a realtor for a person, no matter if I'm listing their house or helping them find a home, somewhere along the process, it usually comes up that I was the ring announcer for World Championship Wrestling. It's always interesting to see their reactions. Some people think it's, oh, wow, that's really cool. I've even had a couple, I remember you now that you say it. And I've had many people who have said, I could care less. Let's find a house. So, but it's always interesting. So you can hit me up at David Penzer at radioinfluence.com if you know anybody, or if you're in need of realty services. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So I was thinking this week about who I wanted to have as a guest on this podcast, and I realized we had not had any females that have been a part of the wrestling business. And so I was thinking who might be a really cool interview, because she was a really cool person when back when we got to hang out in WCW and later TNA. So I thought that I wanted to reach out to the wrestler and character formerly known as the Scream Queen, Daffney, and talk about her interesting journey and how she got in the wrestling business by accepting a casting call, and 18 years later, what she's up to. And I'm hoping for an eye-opening interview about what it's like to realize that you have a dream when you're already halfway in the middle of doing such dream. And also, in light of recent events, there's a lot of discussion about how it is to be a woman in the entertainment business, or a woman, period, dealing in a male-dominated world. And so that's relevant. So we're not going to get too deep into that with her, out of respect. But I just wanted to touch base on that, and I thought that was a topical thing to talk about. So without further ado, I want to welcome the formerly known as Scream Queen, Daffney. Welcome to Sitting Ringside, Shannon Spruill. We've interviewed a lot of people since we have debuted a few months ago, and most of those people, we start out the interview by talking about their love of professional wrestling, wanting to be a professional wrestler, wanting to be in the business, trying so many different ways to get in the wrestling business. And we have a guest that I'm really, really excited to have on. I believe this is her first podcast that she's ever done, and I'm honored that she's doing it with me on Sitting Ringside. And Daffney, the Scream Queen, we broke in WCW together. I think I spoke to you about filling out some paperwork the very first day that you started, and you told me the story of why you were there. And I just think it's so cool, not only that you were there, but that you lasted in the business for so long. So welcome to Sitting Ringside, Shannon Spruill, better known as Daffney. How are you?
I'm doing great, Penzer. I'm honored. I was really happy to get your message and reach out, because it's not the first podcast. I've done them a year, but I haven't done one in like 2 years. I've just kind of been, like I told you, I've been kind of off the grid. So
the first one in 2 years. Well, we're honored to have you, and I think your story is really cool. So do you remember that day that I think I had you fill out some paperwork and you told me how you got there? And if you do, please tell the fans, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, vividly, down to like what I had on, and like coming into catering with, the girl Lee, and so they don't know. Okay, so the story is I'm minored in acting, and I did some acting when I was a child, and I always, wanted to be involved in the entertainment business, and I got my degree in film and video production so I could work behind the camera. But the likelihood of, because yes, I wanted to be an actress, but the likelihood of making it was so small that I was like, well, at least this way I can at least be on a set. I'm
Sure.
not going to be in front of the camera. So that's why I chose that. Yeah, I double minored in music and acting. So, I did stuff in production for a while, and then, one of the ladies was like, well, let me be your agent, so she had mentioned something about WCW, and I was like, dude, I love wrestling. And I was like, I occasionally watch, still to this day, keep up and watch a little bit of WCW, and so I had seen some of my actor buddies do like, a one-off or whatever, and so she flew me and another lady up there, and then we just go and we sit in catering, and I'm in this big arena, and I'm going, oh my goodness, what is going on? All right.
So did you do a casting call, or did they just hire you based off of like a photo catalog? How did that happen?
We were flown based upon our headshots and resumes. We were flown for an on-site audition. That's how much money Ted Turner spent. You know what I mean? I mean, what a waste. Like, just to oh, wait, so we can pick between you two. We're going to fly you here, as opposed to like doing the casting and at the power plant or something. You know what I mean?
Well, we wonder why a few years later the company was no longer in business, but that's a whole totally different conversation.
Yeah.
So it was down, but so there was a role, and it was down between you and another woman, and this part I don't remember. I don't even know if I knew it. And they flew both of you to the arena for a live casting call. That was the name of the character, Daffney, and if so, how long was the role supposed to be?
The name of the character was Daffney Unger, because I did my first pre-tape that day. Basically, Craig, do you remember Craig Leathers, the executive producer? Yeah, I love him. He's like my first, whenever we were talking and stuff, and I was like, well, actually, I was getting ready to go to grad school, and he's like, oh my God. He's like, no, don't get sucked into this, go do that. But he was such a cool guy, or probably still is a cool guy. So that he pulled us over, and then we talked a little bit, and then they're like, all right, we'll be right back. And then they came back, and they're okay, we're going to go with Shanna. So then I meet Vince Russo for the first time, and there's a set. It's my bedroom, quote unquote. There's a shrine to David Flair. He gives me my verbiage. He tells the makeup lady that they want me to look gothic because, I do have long black hair and tattoos. So they're like, yeah. And I think another thing that got me the job was when I was standing there talking to Craig Leathers, and they were like, the part is that you're going to be playing a crazy stalker person and you're going to stalk David Flair. And I immediately said, oh, like how he's been stalking Kimberly right now. And Craig's face, he was like, what? I'm like, oh yeah. I don't know. I was not smart. I was always a fan, and it never, kind of occurred to me that I could try and do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I always found it fascinating. So then I go do the pre-tape, and I can say it.
Before we go on, let me just interject. I got to say, the cool thing about doing a fly-in, a tryout for a role is that you get to fly, and whatever happens, you get to go to a new city and see a new city. But the bad thing about it is, if you don't get the role, it's a long flight home. So I feel bad for that girl who didn't get the role, but you got the role, and so they put you in. They had you do your scene. Did they give you any idea how long the role was going to be for? Because I remember correctly, it wasn't going to be long term.
It was supposed to be 6 weeks.
6 weeks. And you were thrilled to death. You were an actress working in the wrestling business. You were going to get a 6 week run, and on what at the time was one of the top rated shows on cable television. So tell us how the whole thing evolved into you becoming a regular character, and who did you do the screaming on your own, or was that something that was told for you to do as well, as far as the goth character?
That's all Ed Ferrara. I have to give a shout out to him because Ferrara. I always say his name wrong. I would always joke around because I could never pronounce it right. But he's such a wonderful man, and so we're doing, and because he's a writer, so he's also all about character development as well, and he knew I was an actress, and so, and also. So anyway, well, I'm doing we were feuding with the Misfit and Vampiro and Jerry Only, and Jerry Only come on to me or whatever, and I turn around and I knee him in the crotch and I bite him on the nose, and then he goes, just run down the hall screaming as loud as you can. And I was like, are you sure you want me to do that? And he was like, yeah. And so I did, and everyone was just like, I was walking, I ran a long way, and then I came back.
I get it. It's a wrestling podcast, but he's saving us money on our mortgage. Do you really trust this process? The reviews don't lie. 5-star review after 5-star review. We make it fast, we make it easy, and it's no cost or obligation. Give us a shot to earn your business. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did, especially if you like keeping more of your own money You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Hurry to SaveWithConrad.com.
That, there was like, holy cow, that was so loud. They're like, can we do it one more time? I was like, sure. And by that time, like, people from all around the arena were coming around to like see if something was wrong, because it was like you could hear it everywhere.
Yeah, you had a set of lungs on you for sure.
Yeah, man. Now listen to my old scratchy, grizzled old veteran voice, But I couldn't. I'd have to do some vocal warm-ups now if I wanted to scream. Yeah. So then I did it again. I did that again, but just going back to my first day on the job, when I did that pre-tape, they sent me home, and then nothing. You just wait. You don't know if you're going to do 6 weeks. It was all like very. And I think that upon speaking with them and everything, they purposely changed things to make it last longer, because when I finally got the contract, it was a 6-month contract, and it had been, and David had gotten a teddy bear with no head, and then he had gotten a golden crowbar, and I'm sitting there watching at home, and I'm like, Daffney gave him that. Daffney gave him that. I'm like, all right. I'm like,
that's me.
They're gonna have me back.
You're thinking, you're watching at home thinking, that's me, but I'm not there, but that's me.
Yeah, and I was going, they're going to bring me.
That has to be
bring
strange.
me back, and I'm like, yeah. So I was like, be prepared, So I'll show up, and
so you're following your chances of getting a longer gig as the storyline drags out, where you weren't even there. That has to be a first, I got to say.
Yeah, I'm like, no, man, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I thought positive. And so then whenever I came, like the first thing we did, with my character. And as I had to, the first thing while I was live at Starrcade, I ran out and saved Dave from DDP. So I just kind of like acted crazy or whatever. But then when it was time for me to like get bumped off the apron or whatever, I mean, I'm just an actress. So whoever was the agent was like, well, you're like, what if you, would you be willing to, and like, if someone hit you, like, and I look and I see the fall mats, and I'm like, oh, you mean like this? And I just took a bump off the apron naturally. And they were like, yeah, just like that. I'm like, yeah, cool. All right. And then I'm like, what else can I do? And then Crowbar saw that. So he's like teaching me stuff. And then Shane Helm's like, well, do you even know how to lock up? And I'm like, well, I mean, I've seen it, but I've never done it. He's like, well, here you go. And she taught me collar and elbow locking me in my first couple weeks in the business. So I was just like, I must do this. I have to work really hard. So then I said to them, hey, can I go train at the power plant? Because I lived in Atlanta, and now I do too. And it's in Smyrna, it's like a 30-minute drive. So I would show up at around 9:30 to miss traffic, and I wouldn't leave till like after traffic. I'd stay all day, bring the food, work out with Sarge. That was back when Mark Jindrak was there, and like, God bless him, Sean O'Hare, and like Sonny Siaki and Elix. And so and then Molly Holly was there. So I got to get in the ring with her. And the agents would come in and just kind of, check, watch or whatever, and they'd leave. And I think they saw that, and they took my 6-month contract and turned it into a 2-year contract.
So let's go back. So you did the tryout, you did the scene where you screamed and ran out of the room. You go home, and at that point you're just.
Oh no, I didn't do that bit with Jerry only until after I was hired.
Oh, but you did.
I was involved in the storyline. You asked me about the scream, so I was telling you where it came from.
Sometimes I have a habit of getting ahead of myself. So you do the thing on the bed with where you're obsessed with David Flair. Then they fly you home and they say, yeah, we'll be back in touch. You're watching on TV and you're seeing yourself leaving gifts that you haven't actually left, but you're hoping for the best. At that point, what the point I'm getting to is, did you start to think about the fact that maybe I'd like to be a professional wrestler, or at that point you're just thinking, I just want this gig?
It was, I want this gig, and I want it for a long time. Like I'm gonna throw myself in studying and watching tape and watching the competition and watching old tape and watching, women's singles match and anything Japanese, I would study. And
so you were hooked. You were hooked.
Yeah.
Just like
that.
that.
So I would make up for, what, I had my, like I said, I watched it religiously when I was a kid. My favorite was Jimmy Superfly Snuka and George Animal Steel. I remember when Roddy Piper pulled up the mats and gave Snuka a pile driver on the concrete, and they took him out in a stretcher, and I'm going, he didn't have to do that. I totally believed it. I'm like, man, he really hurt him. I'm like, Snuka. And I hated Piper. So, I was a fan. It's just as I grew older, I was just more on the acting side of it. But then I also played soccer and I was a goalie. So I love sports too. So,
Now, granted, I know for a fact that you worked hard. You talked about going to the power plant. Nobody asked you to do that, and you went anyway. And you always put everything you had in it, and deserved every bit of success that you got by all means. But now that you've been in the business and you've seen what you've seen, do you ever look back and realize that there's people that go to wrestling school and pay money to $2,000 to learn how to be a professional wrestler and toil away for $10 on in long car rides to get the opportunity that you got just because you're in the right place at the right time with the right look. Is that lost on you at this point?
No, and in fact, as the years have gone by, 18 of them, how do I put this? I knew what was happening when it was happening, and I used it and smartly, really, really fought to, do it for as long as I can. And then whenever they folded, I paid my dues in reverse, and I was fully aware of that. I was being paid to train,
Yeah. So you sort of started at the top and kind of went from there after that ended. Before that ends, let's go back. You were involved in a very famous feud that had to do with a wedding between you and David Flair, and Stacy Keibler was involved. What are your memories of that? Working with Stacy, who's now pretty high profile in the Hollywood circles, and how is it to work with her? Do you keep in touch with her? And I always thought she was the nicest person in the world, as were you. But just wondering about your thoughts when you were working with her, and now that she's sort of gotten in the A-list celebrity group.
Oh, well, I'm very happy for her. I mean, she's a beautiful lady. Back then, with them wanting us to have a singles match at that point, of course, neither of us were ready. And I knew that. And I was like, that's why I was like, can we make it let's put some comedy in this, and with old Crowbar coming out and the pants getting ripped off, and then Crowbar comes out and sees the ref doesn't have on pants and David doesn't have on pants, so he just takes off his pants. We just tried to help stretch it so it's a pay-per-view length match, And but Stacy and I were we didn't know how to put a match together as far as just the wrestling part of it. But I knew enough about psychology at that point that I was like, no, we are going to need something to make this be good because the wrestling's going to be very amateur. You know what I mean?
Well, and I remember those segments and, leading up to it and the match. And for two green girls and a green guy and David Flair and a Crowbar who had a little bit of wrestling under him, but still it was not what you would call a seasoned veteran. It was some entertaining stuff. You guys put a lot into it, like you said about the pants and stuff. And if you go back and look at that stuff, because I have recently, that stuff holds up. I mean, it's entertaining. So I think it was great stuff, and it just showed the hard work that you guys all put into it. How was it being with Dave? Being paired with David Flair, who's the who obviously the son of one of the most famous wrestlers of all time. And how was it like working with Rick?
Oh, it was amazing. I love Rick. I pray for his health and that he continues to improve. David was his situation was he was in junior college and the office called and was like, "Hey, do you want to be on TV?" He had always played football all his life, so he was an athlete, but so. It was kind of the same thing in that we were both kind of learning as we went. And he had been there for longer than I, so, and he had like his set of moves that he could do and they looked good. But then certain things we were like, David, you can't do that. And he was nervous as hell. I mean, he was 20, turned 21, and it had big shoes to fill. You know?
The biggest, some of the biggest. I didn't envy him at all. And, I
felt sorry for him. I felt sorry for him. So it was, obviously, if he wanted to be in the business, he would have stayed and done something else. But it was like, when that was done, he did a little bit of indies and stuff and some things but then, he's a family man and works the real job and everything.
Yeah. I've seen him I saw him before the Hall of Fame. Him and Ashley last year before WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame ceremony. I was a guest of a favorite of yours, Dave Finley. He's a favorite of everybody. But
yeah,
I think the only time that I ever went out and socially with you was me, you, and Dave Finley went to because I guess you were raised in Germany. So on a German tour, if I remember correctly, we went to a bar and the three of us and had a couple. I think you guys had a couple pints and I had a couple of vodkas, but I don't know if you remember that.
No, remember Fit made us drink those shots.
Oh yes, you're right.
Clear liquid. Remember, he's like, "No, I can't do a German accent. I can't do Fit's accent. I can do a British one, but I can't do German." He's like, "No, he's like, I've got to take you to this bar. It's just up the block." And you could see it from where we were at. I think we were standing outside the front of the hotel, like maybe he was, I don't know, I don't remember why, getting fresh air or something. And the hotel bar was right there, and we had been partying there. So we went off by ourselves, yeah. And he made us drink this German drink. And we staggered back across the street to the hotel, and I felt like crap the next day. I felt like I had an axe in my head, like someone had just like hit me with an axe.
But I was a guest of his at the Hall of Fame, and I saw David. David looks totally different, like long beard and mustache and dark hair, and he's very, very happy. Has a wonderful family. Goes, like he said, goes to work every day. And I some people the wrestling business is for, and obviously it's worked out well for Ashley. But David, I think kind of did it out of the sense of purpose, being Ric Flair's son, but I don't get the feeling that he ever enjoyed it. Would that be right?
He didn't. I'm sure, we had fun at points, but I think he did not enjoy the whole flying and, early flights and driving, when you're doing the loop and it's 10 days, you have to love it to, and I think he liked it and he had a little bit of fun, but he didn't love it. It wasn't. And I shouldn't say it wasn't in his blood because it's in his blood, but it wasn't his passion.
Wasn't his passion. You're exactly right. Did Arn Anderson, who of course saw Dave grow up and was extremely close with that family, was he instrumental at all in helping you put any of that stuff together? Because he was an agent at the time. Did you get to work with him, or did he take a special liking towards your little storylines?
He was our agent. Occasionally, it rotated, and at first, I was an actress, and how long is she going to be around? And Arn was, pretty just okay, and then Daffney, blah blah blah. But as time went on, and I proved myself, I think I gained his respect. I think. I always got along with him, but I mean, like I said, he's old school, and just, some old school guys just don't think females have a place in the business, Not everybody thinks that way. I don't know if he did. I just know that I had to win him over. And then he was like always like, okay, what spot can we have Daff do? You know, and we'd figure it out.
As someone who's been very close friends with Arn Anderson for a long time, I would be very comfortable saying that it was more of being an outsider than a female. I think he would, if an actor got a role, that had never been involved in the business and wanted to be in the business, I think he'd treat that person just the same way. It's more about not, making people prove themselves, almost, almost like a fraternity before you get the keys to the front door, or the passcode type of thing. And you certainly more than earned yourself, earned your spot. Any other WCW thoughts?
Well, I had like a story that I was going to tell, and I guess this isn't what the story that I was going to tell, but now that I think about it, it's very appropriate for what we were talking about last night. Is this whole Me Too thing. And, so I've been in the business 18 years.
Just so people know what you're talking about, if you live under a rock, obviously there's been a big scandal with, and I wasn't sure whether we're going to touch on this or not, but it's certainly topical, and I appreciate you being open about it. But obviously, Harvey Weinstein and Hollywood, casting couches come to light, and all kinds of things have been done. Politics, powerful people sometimes, don't do the right thing because they have power, and so a lot of the women, whether they're in entertainment business or housewives or no matter what, the accountants have done a Me Too campaign, which means that they've been affected by somebody like that. So I just wanted to explain that. So go ahead with your story, please.
Well, I just remember being in I guess watching the monitors backstage, but they were in a room, and so some of the talent could kind of and stand back and watch. And I was in there with Symphony, Ryan, AKA Ryan Shamrock, and a certain wrestler walked by, and he was coming from the showers, going to the locker room, which was directly across the hall, and he saw us, and he's like, "Hey, ladies." And all he had was a white towel on around his waist, and he flashed us. And Now, I think one of the reasons why I was accepted is because, I laughed it off. It was like I didn't. Whatever, dude. He's just being a tard, and that same individual, if you remember correctly, took a poop in your briefcase and shaved Ric Flair's one eyebrow off on the way to England and pissed him off royally. So he was a troublemaker. So, you expect something like that from him. And there were instances where it was just something as simple as that. And he was just, it was his way of trying to be funny, Yeah,
so, that's not acceptable in any way, shape, or form.
No, and I wasn't advocating it either.
But
I was saying that it was, looking back, it totally bothered me and everything, but I, of course, didn't say anything and was just like, that's how it is. It's the boys club, and I'm a girl. So you got to be one of the boys.
And you totally were one of the boys, but that doesn't excuse any of that from going on.
Exactly.
And we'll get back to the bigger picture of a woman in a man's world, because you went on to have a career for a long time in this business. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that the only reason that you're not wrestling is because physically you're too beat up to go back and take the risk. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I had to retire from the ring because of the two major grade 2 concussions I got in TNA that were, like I said, within 6 months. And it's that second one that gets you. The first one was real bad, but then they let me manage for a while. I just would do run-ins, and then they started me back on a couple explosion matches, and I felt good. But then when I got the second big grade 2 concussion, I also like couldn't feel my legs for like 10 minutes, and it was real scary. And so I just, you know, as a, you know, as much as I felt like at that point I was at the height of my career, you know, and that was like I had just come off having a shot at the title, you know, and then it was, you know, so I'm trying to get better so I can get back, you know, you want to keep your face out there. But I wasn't taking any new bookings. I would fulfill the ones that I had, you know, especially if they had already bought a plane ticket, you know, I'm not going to, but I'd be like, look, I'm really still not quite healed. Let's just work a match, but we'll just work around my head, you know, and if you're smart, you can do that.
Right.
Now, it didn't mean the next day and for like 14 days after I fulfilled that booking, I would just be laying there like, oh my God. I mean, I can't tell you the pain. And it lasted for years. And I still, when the sun hits my eyes, it's like, oh, I have to wear sunglasses, you know, if it's sunny. And that, and then my last match was TNA brought me in December, and they were doing a week's worth of tapings, and I had a match every night, and I tried the first night, and I didn't even do very much. But they had me bumping pretty much, and taking a lot of stuff, and so I just was like, that night, I was in the hotel room with Mickie James. I was just like, I can't wrestle. I can't. My brain is mush, you know. The pain. I've said this before, but after a little while, I felt like, and I'm not comparing myself to him, but I felt like Bret Hart. I mean, I know you were there, and I was there the night that Goldberg kicked him in the head. That was his last match, you know. And when we did the Germany tour or whatever, you know, and or maybe England, he came and just like talked in the ring.
Yeah, he just did a live promo, right? Right,
because he was, and I sort of like, we had like, you know, 3-hour bus rides, whatever, and I was like standing there talking to him, and he was like, I don't think I'll ever wrestle ever again. And he said it then, 3 months after it happened. He's like, that's how much it hurts. He's like, all day, every day, it hurts so bad. And when it happened to me, I'm like, I know how he feels. And the dread that you're never going to be able to have a match again is cut short. You have so much left in you. But you're like, no, it's just poof, and it's gone. And I was only 36, I think. Haven't wrestled in 7 years.
Yeah, that sounds right. So I want to talk about the TNA thing and how you started, because it's kind of interesting and silly. But let's go back. In between WCW and TNA, you did a lot of mostly independent stuff, Ring of Honor, Shimmer, I believe. Is it not Shimmer? What's the name of the promotion out of Illinois? Is that Shimmer?
It's Shimmer.
Shimmer,
yeah.
Yes. And a lot of independents. You did have a brief run as in Ohio Valley Wrestling as for WWE. Tell me about that, how it came about, and why it only lasted a few months.
Well, I mean, now I can talk about something else that's near and dear to my heart is my mental illness that I'm outspoken about. I'm bipolar. I didn't become bipolar until after I met you, Penzer. It hit me when I was 27.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was my fault.
No. But I had my first manic episode at 27.
Wow.
And it lasted a long time. And I mean, I was everywhere. I was driving all up and down, going to every show, trying to hit WWE for a tryout as much as I could, trying to go to TNA, going up, Ring of Honor, and I was working as Lucy Fur because someone had attempted to copyright my name. They will remain nameless out from under me. And I had to wait until it expired because they couldn't show proof of use.
Right.
And then I copyrighted myself. So, so in the meantime, while that's going on, I'm like, well, I need a new name, you know? So then I started doing that. And then I was also Shark Girl, but I was Lucy, and then Furr. So I was Lucifer. And it was just, a character that I did. And similar to Daffney.
Was it similar to Daffney, or was it a totally different character?
That's what I was about to say. It was similar to WCW Daffney, but I had more experience. I was more seasoned, and then I was in Second City Saints with Cabana, Ace Steel, and Punk. So I was, and then I'm around. I'm just you're only as good as the people that you work. You only are going to get better if you work someone that's better than you. Where I had to, and I was just like a sponge, man. I just and then I mean. I'm not trying to put myself over, but I think it's some of natural talent. Some of you've got to have it, or
you got it. I mean, I've seen a lot of people come in with the push and they got the look and they just don't have it, and it's hard sometimes to put your finger on it, but it was pretty evident, I think, for everybody. And I'm not just saying this kiss your ass because you're on the podcast. I'd tell you this if we're sitting in a bar and at a convention, you like you said, you immersed yourself in the business and you wanted to learn everything, but you also had that look, and you were smart enough to know, correct me if I'm wrong, you wore a lot of different wigs, you put different sayings on T-shirts. That was all you, correct? Just in an effort to stand out.
I was never once told what to wear. Once. I would be like, is this okay? I was like, I'd just show up to the pre-tape and they wouldn't say anything. No one said, and I'd say, hey, what am I doing on the match segment for this pre-tape? So I know if I need to have pants on, or if, these boots or other boots, and, everything I did, they were just like, they'd laugh at some of the tank tops were like inside jokes and stuff. And so the boys would pop when they'd see what my shirts say. Oh, no, that's not true. Okay. So when I first came in, I was wearing this little tank top that had a British flag on it that was white, and I had jeans, and I had red velvet Docs on, and I run, and that was my Starrcade appearance. And then whenever they're bringing me back, I was like, well, maybe I would make a shirt that says I love David, just to show how obsessed I am with him, that I've always got something like that on. So it started off with just that, and I made one in white, and I came to the back, and Terry Taylor goes, Daffney doesn't wear white. And I was like, gotcha. And then I knew what to do, Yeah,
I mean, and it's the little things sometimes, it's ironic enough that I don't know if you remember or not, but I wore flashy cummerbunds and bow ties, That was my way, because I had a uniform. It was a tuxedo. I couldn't change it. That was unless it was Road Wild or Bash at the Beach, and I could wear something different. For 200 plus days on the road, I had a uniform. So my way of being of setting myself apart, depending on what kind of mood I was in, is to wear kind of more flashy cummerbund and bow ties. And people to this day still remember that stuff. And I think that's one of the things that set you apart, is you always had these different sayings on your T-shirts. I'd start out with I Heart David and all this different stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure a lot of people, when you go around, and I know you've been off the grid, but before, when you would do conventions and appearances and stuff, I'm sure people would mention that because it sticks out to people.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just because I've been around for so long, I have people that come up to me and say, I used to watch you in WCW when I was a kid, and I'm like, great, thanks, man. But, I'm always like, oh, I'm so flattered, but it just makes you feel old or whatever. And then there's a younger generation that just that some of them went back and were like, oh my God, I didn't even know that you did all that. I just thought you were this person. The TNA knockout. So, and that was another version of Daffney. I had to reinvent myself
Sure. So tell me about, we're talking about the WWE Developmental Center. Tell me about your time with that.
Oh, well, what we were talking about is that I got the call that I had got hired, and I had started to go from being manic to like an in-between stage. And after you're that manic, then you go, so it's like you go to the extreme the other way, and you have to go through that for a while. It's just how it is. It's not like 2 days or whatever, it's months, you know. And so I got the call from Johnny Ace. I was on my way to my best friend's wedding, and he's like, yeah, congratulations, you now work for the WWE. And I'm like, oh, awesome. And then we had a good time and everything. So I had a good time at the wedding, and I'm like, yeah, I got a job. But then I was filled with dread because I was so depressed, and it was awful. My dad had to come up and live with me. I got a 2-bedroom apartment, and I don't know what, Mickey was in there, and we got Carlito, gosh, this is just silly. Jillian Hall, Tank Woman, and her Tank Toll, and there was a bunch of, people that had contracts and didn't at the time. I mean, there were so many, Mark Magnus, who ended up being Muhammad Hassan or whatever, Joey Matthews, all those people thought, because here's my dad. Well, no, Mickey and Joey weren't there. It was in the beginning. They came later. So in the beginning, because me and my dad lived in the apartment, and I'm wondering, because he would come to work with me, and everybody called him Colonel. Hey, Colonel, and he would go to every show on the weekend where you got to put up to the ring and do the show, and then put it down and take it back. It was different. So I mean, the NXT, it's like, it's just your typical stereotypical. Do you guys know how good you have it? I mean, we performed in some ghetto places, in Kentucky. So
because of the situation that you were in mentally, your father had to literally move to Ohio and accompany you. That's an amazing story. And commendations to him. What a great dad. And thank you, and thank you for your honesty on that doesn't get talked about a lot. I've lived with anxiety almost my whole life, and I don't talk about it a lot, certainly, but that's nothing compared to my dad is a psychologist, so I know a little bit about mental health, and so God bless you for having to live through that. So how did that end? Was it just too much for you mentally?
Well, I was, I didn't know what was happening. I just know that I was driving around. I was sleeping 2 hours a night. I was talking fast. I got so skinny. I got down to 108 pounds. I was training all the time. And I'm like, I'm crazy. Something is wrong with my head. I need to, but I was in denial. I thought that I could manage it on my own. I'd self-medicate for a while, and then finally get hooked up with a psychiatrist. And I think because of my profession, I was a woman, and he was kind of very, conservative. He really looked down his nose at me, and I don't think he believed me. And he just gave me a real low dose of something. So I was taking this, kind of made me feel zombie-esque, but I had to wait to get an appointment. So for a couple months there, I was just white-knuckling it on no meds. But then Mickie James called, and she's like, she got hired, and she's like, oh, my God. And I was like, dude, come live here, move in with me. And she's like, well, I have Adam. And I was like, well, that's fine. I was like, I got a 2-bedroom, and I was like, Dad, I'm doing good. Mickey will totally she's my little ray of sunshine. She's amazing. And so I was like, she did. I mean, she kept me going, and I was able to get up and go to practice and go to the shows and have a little bit more confidence, but they didn't ever let me do very much. And on the TV program, and I love Nova, and Aaron Stevens was who he was at the time. That's who I managed. But Lucifer, and then these two guys in gold tights that are it didn't fit,
Sure.
And I was like, that's not, I don't know. I was like, that's not how I see her, but they made me do this. And everything, it just, and I heard down the grapevine, and I was like, they're like, yeah, Jim Ross is like, and we have Daffney Y. And then I was like, oh.
So it wasn't a perfect fit. But did that give you the opportunity to finally get your meds right and get your life together?
Well, that's why I had to take some time off, because I was very sick. By that time, I was, pretty much off my meds, because what the psychiatrist had given me did nothing, and he was a jerk, and I was just like, man, no, I'm gonna, and I mean, I guess that's how I learned that, it's all about meditation, medication, and therapy, because some people say they can be bipolar and not be on any medication, but I know that it would be destructive to me. And to be high functioning, I have to be very diligent about my health.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody that could be bipolar and be off their meds and function. Like I said, my dad's 50-year psychologist, so he owned a place called the Center for Counseling Services that had all kinds of different specialists when I was a kid. And I used to work there in the off time, answering phones and stuff when I was a kid. So I got to know a lot of the people. And I'll tell you, I know a little bit about, mental health. Like I said, I've never seen anybody in that situation that could function without being on medication. And again, you're very brave to come on. I had no idea we were going to talk about that and tell your story. And hopefully, if there's other people out there that are listening that aren't feeling right, maybe, if you could help one person, then it's worth telling your story. So God bless you. And thank you for doing that.
From the time I was like 4 was Princess Leia. And then as I get older and I learned about Carrie Fisher, and I also grew up on singing in the rain and musicals. That's what my parents like. So I was a big fan of Debbie Reynolds. So she inspired me to embrace it. And don't let it own you. You own it. And if I can do it, then you can do it, and he can do it, and anybody. And the fans, like, I like to communicate with them. They'll send me, like, thanks for, and I'm like, hey man, just you got to reach out, and I would give them advice or whatever, because it honors me that I can help people, and that they would turn to me. Like, that makes me feel good. So it's like, why not go public with it?
Yeah, but it's brave to do that. But, and then people see that if somebody that I grew up watching on TV, sorry, I know that makes you feel old, but me too, by the way. If somebody that I grew up watching on television is brave enough to talk about it, then I could be brave enough to face it. And so it's great that you do that. I want to get to how you got to TNA, because it was not as Daffney or as Lucifer. It was a unique character, to say the least. So tell us about how that came about and what it was and your thoughts about that.
Well, I think it was all Terry Taylor and Russo. They've always given me so many opportunities. I mean, Terry Taylor is one of the ones that would come and see me in the power plant all the time. He saw. And so they know. And, I kept trying to get a job there, And then, one day Terry's like, Shannon, how old are you? 35? And I was like, I'm 34, Terry. And I was like, and I look like I'm 24, so blah, 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 and I was like, come on, man. And anytime I do a new photo shoot, Lee South would send him pictures and everything, but he would always pitch me. And Dixie didn't really care for me. She's more for just like your traditional looking, normal female wrestler. That legit looks more maybe athletic, than more like a character, Finally, they sat and they were like, maybe Daffney could do this. And so they were like, Terry called, he's like, do you think you could impersonate Sarah Palin? And I was like, oh, you betcha. You betcha. He goes, okay, well.
That's great. What a comeback.
Well, yeah, so he was like, go take a picture. He's like, get yourself dressed up like her and show us a picture of what you look like. So me and my mom, we went all around to find the glasses. We got a wig. I got like a business suit or whatever. And, we did my makeup and everything. And then I took a picture and I sent it to Terry's phone. And I mean, it was about 10 minutes later, I got another call. So they saw it and they're like, all right, I want you to call Vince Russo and talk to him and everything. So I was real nervous and everything. And I called and it went straight to voicemail. So I was like, So I came up with this promo that Sarah Palin would say about, I know that they were wanting to use me at a pay-per-view if it worked out. So I was like, thank you for inviting me to the pay-per-view, blah, 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 this Sarah Palin, and I was like, hey, Mr. Russo. And so I just left it in gimmick. And like 10 minutes later, I got another phone call from Terry. All right, can you be in, where do we need to fly you out of for this? So, but I did that for 4 months, and I wasn't under contract that whole time while I played her. So.
And you think doing the promo in her voice helped you? I'm sure helped you get the gig. That's quite brilliant, actually. That was just a spur of the moment thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Because I was just like, I mean, and I don't know. I mean, God, you gotta. That's how bad I want it. I think that just goes to show how you can survive 18 years, because that's as an actress, I'm like, and then the athletic part, at that point, I had been in the ring for 10 years. So, it was, that just came, I felt more comfortable having matches. It was more, I was just wanting to create newness, I don't know. But that was all, it was supposed to be like I don't know. It wasn't supposed to last very long. And I don't know if they were thinking about offering me a contract after that. However, Jeff Jarrett thought it was so funny that he just drug it out. Because I finally, because they told me that it was going to happen. And then I had the wig on, but underneath, coincidentally, I had curled my hair, and it would look nice and them. And Russo goes, hey, how long is your hair? And I was like, oh, they're going to see what I look like without, and this is going to be the beginning of change and that. And I was like, and I was like, it's this long. And I was like, oh, and he goes, would you be willing to cut it?
Oh my God.
I was like, oh, and he knows, he knew. And I just was like, Vinny Roo, and I was like, he goes, think about it, to take the night and to call me tomorrow. And he took 10 steps, started to walk out in the makeup room door. I went right, it was 10 beats. And I was like, Vince, I'll do it. And that's when I got my contract, when I agreed to cut my hair.
And then
I was like, okay, now what do I do? And then I had to create this new version of Daffney. You know what I mean?
So that's so when you cut your hair, that's when the Sarah Palin gimmick was over, and you had to recreate Daffney again, all from scratch.
Yeah.
And how is that? As somebody who really takes pride, and I knew that, but you could tell from the interview about how much pride you take in being a sponge and making your own T-shirts and all that. As somebody who takes that pride, how challenging was that to recreate the character that you had started in sort of a different way, and what kind of challenges did you have with that?
Well, that's actually my favorite part. I love the high of the adrenaline in the ring, but creating, and I just enjoy it so much. I just, I like creating new things. So I just would look around at different things, and I thought, okay, if they're going to cut my hair, Vince wanted it to just be all chopped up. And I was like, okay. So what I did is I took my ponytail in the front, and I did like a, Chris Jericho, gimmick.
Right.
And I had to have the match. I had to wrestle in a business suit and barefoot. And just this one time, I didn't wear the wig, and I wore my hair like that. And so whenever I gave the girls the Iggy, I was like, when the girls, beautiful people, it was Angel and Talia and Madison. Well, Velvet Sky and Angelina Love. I call her Tiz. I love Talia. So she's a good friend. But I said, cut the back. I was like, and you can cut it as short as you want. I was like, try to don't cut the ponytail. Don't touch it. And then that's how I came up with the hairdo of like a really, drastic bob. And then I was like, they made me do my hair. And as I was morphing into it, oh, I know. And then I found this necklace on South Street in Philly. I was with Daisy Hayes. And it was this artist. And I wish I knew. She was local. And I had this necklace, and I wore it in my first promo as the new Daffney. But I was like, do you think you can do my makeup like this? And they were like, ooh. And so all the makeup ladies loved to do my makeup. And the first time I did it, they thought my hair was dry, and they kind of teased it up at the back. And, Vince was like, yes, that's her. That's what, yeah. And so I was like, well, I said, I think that my hair should be wet. I don't know. I just feel more comfortable wrestling that way. I was like, to me, it's just more evil. And it was so much, if I ever wrestled again, I would automatically just wet. Well, now it's really long again, so I do what I did when it was long. I would put it in pigtails and then braid it, and that was, because you get thrown around by your hair a lot.
Sure.
Hard wrestling with long hair down.
So at some point, they put you with Stevie Richards, and had what are your thoughts on how that came about, and how did that? I know that led to the first concussion, but. How did you like working with a guy like Stevie, who's a super cool guy, and how did that come about?
The thing was, when I came in, and he was like, let them cut your hair and then don't touch it. So because I had done it that way, it just looked like it was a little bit shorter. But, I don't know. So Vince wasn't happy. He was like, how can we fix this? Because, it was out of my control. So it made Vince he didn't make it, because then I was like, wait, why would someone be mad at me? And then my mind just went, boop. But that's thanks, bipolar. So he was like, what if we have you go see Dr. Stevie? And Dr. Stevie had already been seeing Abyss and created this totally, that's another thing that I respect about him, is how many times has he reinvented himself. He's an amazing, very talented man. I'm very honored to have worked with him. And
Abyss we're talking about?
We're talking about Stevie.
Oh, Stevie.
And he said how my relationship,
yeah.
Chris too, or I call him Abby, but yeah, Abyss too. Yeah, but at the first thing, that's what he had been doing a program. So they were like, well, why don't we have you go see him as well? Because he's this, messed up psychiatrist, and Daphne's crazy. So then I'm going to seek help, but then it ends up even, and then I'm like, I don't know. And so I also did the promo I did where I'm seeing him, and I cut my own hair in the promo. I cut more of it. And then I went to a hairstylist, and when I came back, that's whenever he was like, he was like, well, I was kind of wanting it. I was like, then, yeah, I don't want to, walk around with all fucked up hair, man. I was like, they're like, no. And I got they did talent reviews. It was Dutch Mantel and Terry at the time, and we would get progress reports basically, and we would go in the room and they would, tell us different things, and if we needed help here or they like this or whatever. And it's hard to win over Dutch. And I got like a really high grade, and he was like, I am so impressed from how you went from Palin to this character that you created. He's like, I'm so impressed with it. And I was just like, wow, yeah, that made me feel good.
And back then, Dutch was sort of the person behind booking the knockouts, correct?
Yeah, he was the head of the women's division, and Savio Vega as well.
Right.
Later on, Al Snow came in, but yeah. So
you've already told the story about getting the 2 concussions, and that was started when you were working with Dr. Stevie. And did you? One quick question. You don't have to go into specifics. Did you ever look back and find it ironic that somebody with your issues ended up in a character that was seen as psychiatrist because she was crazy?
I found it completely ironic. I found it hilarious because when Terry called me, he was like, so, we've got this idea where you're just going to be this like crazy bipolar bitch. And I don't even think he said bitch, but he meant like badass.
Right.
Like he wasn't saying it like that. And I was like, yep, I can do that, Terry. So I thought it was funny as hell.
No, it's great. No, of course. So your career, you told us earlier, your career was basically over. You got 2 horrible concussions. So sorry you had to go through that. And how that can't be happy time. How did you cope with that? And what are you gonna? What are your plans moving on post wrestling?
Well, I mean, yeah, when I couldn't wrestle, and I really didn't even really want to go do signings. I, had decided that I was going to have to file a lawsuit, and that, I was going to fight it and, for the principle of the matter and try to change things for the future wrestlers, that work for a company like that, where they treat you that way, So I was literally for like a year, because they drug it out for 3 years, 2 years.
And if I remember correctly, you were just trying to get your medical bills paid for, correct?
Well, but what I was trying to do is I could have done one of 2 things. I could have filed a personal injury claim, go that way, but I would be an independent contractor, but I filed a workers' comp claim and was trying to prove in a court of law that wrestlers are employees. We are not independent contractors. We deserve health insurance. We deserve, things like that. I mean, I even think like chiropractic or whatever, and we deserve, benefits and retirement and stock options and, to a reasonable degree. But I just think that they have so much control. We're not independent contractors. When you like for TNA, I wasn't, and I was their employee. If I booked, because, you only tape so I was doing other bookings on the weekend, and I had a double booking for Shimmer, and it was already done. I had talked to Prazak, and then I get a call from the office, and they're like, yeah, we had to pull you off the Saturday night Shimmer show, so you can only do the Sunday Shimmer show, and you have to go here on Saturday night. So how is that I'm independent,
It's always been controversial, and it's always held up. And I sometimes wonder, it's a very, very fine line, between the responsibilities of being a professional wrestler and being under contract for a company, and whether that qualifies as independent contractor status or employee status. And it's always been interesting that they've been able to walk that fine line. If you are able to, what was the outcome of all that? Were you able to change anything, or not really?
I got very far, and I got so far that they, they hired a very prestigious law firm to defend the case. Their retainer was $25,000. Well, my hospital bill in LA from Bound for Glory from the first concussion was $26,000. So I'm like, all right. They pulled out the big guns and they did stall tactics and this and that, and they were trying to, wear me out, and they did. And I couldn't go any further. But I did what I did. I'm very, very just, I've said it before in interviews, like if Jesse Sorensen would have joined me, it would be different. We would, and you ask any wrestler, what would they rather be, an independent contractor or an employee? They're going to tell you an employee. It just makes sense if you work for a company like that. Now, Vince does you right. If you get hurt, like when I hurt my knee when I was in OVW, they paid for my rehab, Like right. You just go in, you show them your WWE card, and then, So that's pretty much, health insurance. So that's cool. But still, like retirement or stock options and things like that for a big company like the Fed. But for TNA, I don't know. So I don't know. That's what I was trying to do. I was really bummed that Jesse Sorensen didn't join me, because we would change, the business would be completely different.
Well, a lot of people say, I wish I tried this, and in hindsight, at least you tried it, and they outgunned you at the end, but at least you were able to try it. And I'm sure there's no regrets looking back, trying to make a statement and come in, and like you said, come in real close.
Well, yeah, and I'm just glad I brought attention to the subject.
Sure.
And I had a lot of the boys that were would call me and be like, "You go, Daff. Keep fighting them. We're behind you." And I'm trying to think and rack my brain, and a few people on the roster, I know that TNA had screwed them over as well. And, but if you sue the company, you're blackballed, So I just wish someone would have had the courage to, because it would be completely different.
I will tell you this. I wasn't around for that, and so I can't speak for what happened, other than God bless you for having to live through that pain and the prolonged court. But I will tell you that I've been working with Impact Wrestling as a ring announcer since it was bought by Anthem, and Ed Nordham and Anthem are first class people, and so I just want to differentiate between what you went through and the current ownership of that company, because current ownership.
Oh yeah, company. I sued TNA. I didn't sue Impact. I wasn't even there when they were called Impact. It was always TNA, yeah. And the whole ownership is different. It's a whole different group of people.
Yeah, I hope. I really, they're trying hard, and they got a lot. They got a long way to come back from, because the name was dragged through a lot of negative stuff, as you know. But if they are able to do it, I think it'll be great for the business and B, great for them, because they're first class people. They really, and I'm not just saying that because I work there. I'm not under contract. I'm not even going to. I don't even know if I've said this, but I'm not going to Ottawa for Bound for Glory. That one didn't work out, to go all the way up to Canada. My agreement was to do down here in Orlando when they're in the Impact Zone. So I'm just saying that because I got to know the people, and the people are first class, and I wanted to differentiate between former ownership and management and current. That's all. Real quickly, we touched on it a little bit earlier. A woman in a man's world, professional wrestling predominantly run by men, although Dixie was different, but predominantly run by men, mostly men in the locker room. Even other than the one new female referee in NXT, I don't believe that we've had a female referee in this business. So how is that? And what are broadly speaking, what are the challenges, and how were you able to overcome them? Because you had a very successful career for almost 2 decades.
Well, it's completely different now. I mean, the subject is talked about, and I think that there's a little more, I don't know. I can't actually, you know what? I can't comment on now because I don't know, because I've been off the grid for a couple of years. So I really don't know, but I just know that when I was in the biz, especially my first run, it was old school, and so that's what I grew up in. Is I grew up around. So I mean, I had to learn pretty quick, and if I'm going to survive, I gotta, So I think it's all about the way you carry yourself. If you put out that vibe that I want to be hit on, then yeah. But if you just put like, hey, I'm hanging out, blah, 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 cut up, I talk like a sailor, I hang out and drink you under the table and, have good times.
I could personally attest to that, by the way. You can't do that.
You what?
I could personally attest to the fact that you could drink us under the table.
Oh, hell yeah. I could tell stories. I drank a whole bottle in one night. And whenever we did the London show, and they were on the bus, and they had like a cooler was full of beer. And Hacksaw was like, Brett goes, Hacksaw's allergic to beer. We have to go to the liquor store. So the bus driver's like, ooh. So me and Hacksaw go in there because I don't want to drink beer. And I'm like, Hacksaw, I'm going to buy a bottle of vodka for me and one for you. And we're going to drink this all tonight, because we had like this long-ass bus ride. And by the end of the night, which is a long story, at the very end, I was hanging out with all the boys, and I was like, it was Brett and Knobs and Norman Smiley and Nick Patrick and Bret Hart and Hacksaw. And I had Brian Knobs had pulled, and he had pulled a rib on me earlier. Like, I was stacking up my suitcases to go, and he kept kicking it over. And I'm like, motherfucker, come on, Knobs. And so then later on, he was like, just saying stuff. And then he goes, dog pile on Daffney, dog pile on Daffney. And so I jumped, and on the bed, and I sprung in the air, and I hit my head on the clock radio. And they were like, oh. So I curled up in a little ball, and I was but I was so wasted. And I was just like, I'm going to pretend like I'm hurt. And I was make them feel bad for a minute. So I did. And I was so sorry, David. And I was just and I almost pretended like I was crying and everything. And then I got up, and I was like, ha! I'm not, and he's like, oh, and I grabbed my bottle of vodka, and there was just one little slip up, and I chugged it. And I go, I'm going to bed. Now, I don't remember that part. Nick Patrick told me that part. So I go to bed, and I just wake up, and I'm in the shower, and I'm like, oh, the back of my head hurts. What happened? And I'm in the elevator. It's like a 6 a.m. bus ride. And it opens on Nick's floor. He's like, he gets in, he goes, how you feeling, kid? I was like, well, I don't know. I said, I was in the shower, I'm hungover. But then he goes, you don't remember hitting your head on the clock radio? And then I was like, oh my God. I totally do. And he was like, yeah, you ripped Knobs really good. He was pissed. And I was like, cool, because then I left. So I guess after I left, he was like, but everybody else thought it was funny. So immediately, I'm just one of the boys. And that's not just Daffney, that's Shannon. You're not in character all the time, so that's just naturally who I am. So I don't know.
You absolutely were. And that's a great story to end it on. Because that's how I remember it. You could drink with any of us and rib. It takes some guts to rib Brian Knobs, because that he's going to rib you back. So you can't say anything else. You were one of the boys. God bless you. One last thing. What is Shannon Spruill? What's next for Shannon Spruill? Well,
I'll try to keep it really brief, but I've been off the grid for a while. I got real sick with, I guess, depression, and my meds got off, and I gained a lot of weight, and, you know, I wasn't really understanding what was going on. And I've gone to a doctor, and I got my thyroid checked and like all these things. And I just was trying to be healthy. So I'm trying to get the right med cocktail that I need, and I'm working out and I'm eating right, and I'm not losing a pound. And so all last year, I would get I even ended up gaining weight. And so then this year, I still kept trying. And January 9th, I woke up and my neck I couldn't feel my arm, because on my left arm, my left thumb. And I was in so much pain. And like, what happened? And it's probably because I crack my neck all the time, but 7 years later, it all caught up to me, and I had to go get a plate and 4 screws in my neck. So that was in February of this year. Then, my mom talked me into going to see a holistic doctor. And so I went, and I showed him the blood work from the thing, it says, and we had found out that I was in menopause. But they said nothing was wrong with my thyroid. And I'm like, okay, so I can understand all last year, like early onset menopause, you gain a little bit of weight and you can't take it off, which are why women take supplements and things. And I did, I tried, So he was like, oh no, he's like, when I check your blood, the results are 30 pages thick. And so I did that, and and I have the results, and it's awesome because it's user friendly. Like it's not in legalese, I can understand what he's saying. He made it like very to where I could comprehend what was happening. And based upon my Lamictal that I take for my bipolar, that depletes my body of vitamin D. So for 10 years, I've been, and he said, and all his years of practice, he said I had like one of the lowest 3 levels of vitamin D he had ever seen. It was very dangerous. It causes depression, and I'm, no other, like a Western doctor has never told me this. And I've had, I've kept going and getting like, what's wrong? And so then he had me put my hand on this thing, and I look up on the screen, and he was looking at, he's like, okay, I can see here you have neck pain. And I was like, yeah, he didn't know I had neck surgery, all from my hand. And he goes, you see, he goes, no, your thyroid it was all just bright red. He goes, your thyroid is so messed up. And he's like, and you are in full blown menopause. And so for the past 5 weeks, I've been on this really special medication for my thyroid, and I've been able to lose like 15 pounds. And it's like, finally, the answer, to what's been wrong with my physical health. My mental health, had improved, and especially has improved since, now I have the knowledge to know what to do to get healthy again. And I'm thinking about coming to WrestleCon. I haven't done anything in 2 years, so I haven't been around in a while. And a bunch of my friends are on TV now, or NXT, or Impact, or, so it's cool. I would love to go see them,
Well, I'm sure the fans would love to see you, and I'm sure the girls and the guys would love to see you too. Hey, Shannon, thank you for your honesty, and thank you for talking about your career. And I wish you nothing but the best. I'm sure the fans do as well. Is there anywhere where that they could follow you? You have presence on Twitter, I believe, correct?
Yeah, everything is at Scream Queen Daff. Just all one word, all lowercase. Scream Queen Daff, DAFF. I've been on Twitter for 10 years now, and that was just what it is. So then that's my Instagram too. I have Snapchat. I do some pretty goofy stuff on there. And then I have my like you're on my Facebook. It's just friends. and family on my Facebook page. So that's not for, but I do have a Facebook fan page, but, you know, I haven't really done anything with it because I haven't really been doing anything, but I'm active on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat.
All right. Well, I encourage everybody to follow Shannon Spruill, formerly known as Daffney. She's obviously battling back from some tough stuff, and I look forward to following your journey. And I'm sure the fans and the guys and myself especially would love to see you back out at conventions and be part of the business again. So we wish you the very best, everybody here at Sitting Ringside. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been hugely enlightening in a lot of different ways, and I thank you for your honesty again.
Yeah, thanks, Penzer, man. Hopefully, I'm honored to be your guest and that you asked, and hopefully I'll catch you down the road, man.
All right, so many of you remember a few weeks ago we had Ricky Santana tell his story. Got a lot of great reviews on the stories that you told, and we thank you for that. We did talk a lot about what was happening in Puerto Rico, and you had said you were going to try to get in touch with people, Carlos in particular, Colon, see how he's doing, and see if they had any thoughts for the future of wrestling on the island, even if they're going to start from scratch. So joining us again for an update, as promised, I do appreciate Ricky Santana. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, my friend. How about you?
I can't complain. So you got in touch with Carlos, correct?
Yes, I did. I finally got a hold of him. It had been, me checking and calling and leaving messages. I even got a hold of Eddie to find out if he had talked to his dad, and he had told me he had talked to him, and I relayed the message. And Carlos finally, I guess, got some cell phone service, and he finally returned my call. And first of all, I made sure that his family, everybody was okay. But he thanked me for, he had gotten the messages that were built up on his phone once he got his service back on. So he did thank me for, being concerned about him and his family. So that was the most important thing.
Most importantly, I was going to say the same thing. Most importantly, how are they doing? How are they, hanging in there?
They're hanging in there. He said, at that point, the island's only got about 22% power going through it. The middle of the island, he said, for the most part, looks like a war zone. He's originally from Isabella, and going down in through that whole area where it actually came through and made a lot of landfall. And he said, trees down, power lines down, roofs caved in. He says it's pretty disastrous. He had power for a little bit right after the storm, but then he hasn't had power since then. So he's kind of living it on an island thing. He says once the sun goes down, there's no power. So all he can really do is just either go to sleep or watch the crickets and the coquis make some sound, dealing with all the things and trying to get all the aftermath of, the flooding and the damage. And everybody's seen that. It's a bad situation for the island, and I keep up my prayers, hope that they can make a quick recovery and that everybody, gets back to normal, because it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it sounds like the infrastructure was even more damaged or more in bad shape than even they originally had realized, and that it seems like it's really going to take a long time. I know that you got, the military in there, you got the Army Corps engineers, and it seems like it's not going to be an easy fix. And so it's extremely sad, but I'm glad Carlos is hanging in there for sure. Any of the other wrestlers that you talked to, and how are they doing?
I was able to communicate via text with Savio Vega. He said the family was okay, and they were making, the necessary means to survive. Thunder of the Thunder and Lightning group, I got a hold of Thunder the same way via the text mode. And, he said everything was, going through the motions of, getting their lives back in order. The one I haven't heard back from yet, and I'm going to try him again, is my old partner down there, Ray Gonzalez. I haven't heard from him, so, I'm concerned about where he's at, his parents and everything else. So, those are the things that cross my mind. And, and then obviously everybody, being that Puerto Rico is the last of the territories, was, wondering what route are they going to take and what they can do, being that, you don't have a lot of the buildings, you don't have power. So, how do you actually, keep your promotion alive?
And did Carlos give you any sense of what the plan was, if there is a plan?
Carlos' plan right now, because the island doesn't have power everywhere, to actually try to produce a weekly programming show would be a futile effort, because if nobody's got power, obviously nobody's watching it.
Sure.
Obviously, there's production costs to get the producer to edit. You can't put in no towns because a lot of the buildings are damaged, so you don't have anything to run to. So what he's doing in the areas, which is basically the metropolitan area where they do have power in places, he's just using tapes from his enormous library that he has of programs that have already been, programmed and edited, and they just, kind of put it on there like, classics. So he's doing that in the meantime. He did mention to me that he looked at some of the buildings that they normally run. There's going to take some time to put those buildings back together. And his and I love it for it. He's a positive guy in that sense, that he's looking to open up next year with his normal Three Kings show, and hopefully, one of the main buildings he's got will be ready to go, and the island will be in a better situation here come 2018 in January, and run his first big show of the year.
Well, we hope that's the case. It sounds like he's being optimistic for sure from the way things are going. Any chance that you get all of the other competing promotions together and just combine to try to get the business jump started, or you think we'll still have a couple of different promotions once the dust settles?
I think they'll have a couple of still different promotions trying to do all with the same cause. They'll try to generate money and revenue for obviously the people that are in need. Also create that back to normal life type of atmosphere. When we went through 9/11 here, we didn't back down, and I give Vince McMahon credit. We went out there and when we ran it alive, and the people were behind us, and I think the same thing can happen for the island of Puerto Rico. I mean, it's been a fixture, for the last 40-something years, 50 years down there, that you've seen wrestling. And, it's a natural pastime for them, kind of like baseball. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think it would be something that would benefit not only, obviously, the business side of it, but just the people in general. You got to have something to work forward, to look forward to. And, if that's been part of your culture for so long, why not go out and take the family and, and get back to a normal life? Because that's all they're looking to do.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate the update, and keep in touch and let us know how things are progressing. And again, please, if you talk to any of the guys, our prayers and thoughts are with them. And let me know. Send me a text when you get in touch with Ray Gonzalez, and let me know he's okay. All right, Ricky. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you with the updates, and let them all know that we're thinking of them, and positive thoughts, and hopefully they get back to normal business. And when I say business, I don't mean the wrestling business. I mean life. They get back to normal life sooner than later. And best to you, my friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the update.
Yep, thank you.
Want to thank Ricky Santana again for that update, and we'll continue to do that, and we hope that they could be back up and running in January as planned. That would be fantastic for all involved. Also want to thank Shannon Spruill, a.k.a. Daffney. Wow, what an interview. I was hoping that we could get into some things that one would consider deep, but her honesty and openness on mental illness, her health issues, both why she had to stop in the business and also what she's been going through recently. Very, very rare for a person in the public eye to be that honest about themselves when things are, let's face it, people don't like talking about mental illness, especially if they suffer from it. I'll be very honest with you. I've suffered from anxiety for 35 years of my life, and I really don't want to talk about it. So other than that, so look, hey, if anybody has any questions about that, I'm glad to engage. I'm not trying to hide anything. But she was very brave to come on and tell her story the way that she wanted it told without holding anything back. So I salute her. I wish her the best. Hopefully we'll get an update and her health will be good. And hopefully she'll be doing wrestling conventions and we'll be able to see her soon. She's a really, really super cool girl. And just kind of like me, she got to live her dream. And so I'm rooting for her. She gave you her connections on Twitter and on Instagram, and I would encourage you to follow her, throw her some words of encouragement, let her know you listened to the interview and that you're on her side, and I'm sure she will respond. She's super cool with her fans as well. So thank you, Shannon. We wish you the best, and thank you, Ricky Santana, as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for this week. Next week, we have been pimping and teasing, and it has finally come to fruition. We're going to have Jim Cornette. I'm hoping he'll stay on for 3 hours because I know he has 3 hours worth of stories easily to tell about his career. I specifically want to talk about the Midnight Express and also Smoky Mountain Wrestling and how he started Smoky Mountain Wrestling and what were the challenges and the highlights and the lowlights. And so we're going to this is not going to be an interview where it's going to be about, Vince rehashing Vince Russo for the 1,000th time or rehashing Santino Marella for the 100th time. There's plenty other venues where you could get that scoop. I really want to talk to a guy who's one of the best storytellers in the history of the business, one of the best interviews in the history of the business, one of the smartest minds in the history of the business, and have a conversation on his career and his thoughts and the things that he's been through. And I think it will be riveting. I will be shocked if it is nothing less. And I hope that you will tune in next week on this very podcast, Sitting Ringside, and hear our conversation, my conversation, with the one and only Jim Cornette. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, I'm still sitting ringside. Have a good one.
Follow David Penzer on Twitter @David Penzer. Also, make sure to follow the show on Twitter @Penzer Ringside. You've been Sitting Ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.